"Now then," quoth Robin, panting as he spake, and whipping the sweat from his brow, "I have thee, fellow. This time that same saint of whom thou didst speakest but now hath delivered 2 swords into my hand, and hath stripped thine away from thee. Now, if thou doest not carry me back, and that speedily, I swear I will prick thee skin till it is a full of holes as a slashed doublet." To the good friar said not a word for a while, but he looked at Robin with a grim look. "No," said he at last, "I did think that thy wits were of the heavy sort, and knew not that thou were so cunning. Truly thou hast me up on the hip. Give me my sword, and I promise not to draw it against thee, save in self-defence. Also I promise to do thee bidding, and take thee upon my back, and carry thee back." So jolly Robin gave him his sword again, which the friar buckled to his side, and this time looked to it that it was more secure in its fastening. Then, tucking it in his robes once more, he took Robin Hood up on his back, and without a word stepped into the water, and so waded on in silence, while Robin sat laughing up on his back. At last he reached the middle of the ford, where the water was deep. Here he stood and stopped for a moment, and then, with a sudden lift of his hand and heaving of his shoulders, fairly shot Robin over his head, as though he were a sack of grain. Down went Robin into the water with a mighty splash. "There," quoth the holy man, calmly turning back again to the shore, "let that cool hot spirit of thine, if it may." Meanwhile, after much splashing, Robin had gotten to his feet, and stood gazing about him, all bewildered, the water running from him in pretty little rills. At last he stood, shot the water out of his ears, and spat some out of his mouth, and gathering his scattered wits together, saw that stout friar standing on the bank and laughing. Then I wot what Robin Hood a madman. "Stay, thou villain," roared he, "I am after thee straight, and if I do not care thy bran for thee this day, may never lift my fingers again." So saying, he dashed splashing to the bank. "Thou needest not hasten thyself, at least, quoth the stout friar. "Fear not, I will abide here, and if thou dost not cry alack a day, ere no long time is gone, may I never more peep through the brake at a fellow deer." And now Robin, having reached the bank, began without more ado to roll up his sleeves above his wrists. The friar also took his ropes more about him, showing a great stout arm on which the muscles stood out like humps of an aged tree. Then Robin saw what he had not wotten of before, that the friar had also a coat of chain mail beneath his crown. "Look to thyself," cried Robin, drawing his good sword. "Ay, marry," quoth the friar, who held his already in his hands. So without more ado they came together, and thereupon began a fierce and mighty battle. Right and left, and up and down, and back and forth, and they fought. The swords flashed in the sun, and then they met with a clash that sounded far and near. I vote this was no playful bout at quarterstaff, but a grim and serious fight of real earnest. Thus they strove for an hour or more, pausing every now and then to rest, at which times each looked at the other with wonder and thought that never had to be seen a stout fellow. Then once again they would go at it more fiercely than ever. Yet in all this time neither had hammered on the other nor caused his blood to flow. At last merry Robin cried, "Hold thy hand, good friend." Thereupon both lowered their swords. "Now I carve a bone ere the beginning again," quoth Robin, wiping the sweat from his brow, for they had striven for so long that he began to think that it would be an ill-done thing either to be smitten himself or to smith the stout or brave fellow. "What wouldst thou have of me?" asked the friar. "Only this," quoth Robin, "that thou wilt not let me blow trees up on the Badlawn." The friar bent his brows and looked shrewdly at Robin Hood. "Now I do very think that thou hast some cunning thick in this," quoth he. "Nevertheless I fear thee not, and will let thee have thy wish, providing thou wilt also let me blow twice upon this little whistle." "With all my heart," quoth Robin, "so here goes for one." So saying, he raised his silver horn to his lips and blew thrice upon it, clear and high. Meanwhile the friar stood watching keenly for what might come to pass, holding in his fingers the while a pretty silver whistle, such as knights use for calling their hawks back to their tryst, which whistle always hung at his girdle along with his rosary. Scarcely had the echo of the last note of Robin's banjo come winding back from across the river, when 4 tall men in Lincoln green came running around the bend of the road, each with a blow in his hand and an arrow ready knocked up on the string. "Ha! This is thus the tailor knew," cried the fellow. "Then marry look to thyself." So saying, he straightway clapped the hawk's whistle to his lips and blew a blast that was both loud and shrill. And now there came a crackling of the bushes that lined the other side of the road, and presently forth from the cover burst 4 great shaggy hounds. At sweet lips, at bell throws, at beauty, at facts, cried the friar, pointing at Robin. And now it was well for the yeoman that a tree stood nigh him beside the road, else had he had an ill chance of it. Ere one could say, "Gaffer down Teedale," the hounds were up on him, and he had only time to drop his sword and leap highly into the tree around which the hounds gathered, looking up at him as though he were a cat on the eaves. But the friar quickly called off his dogs. "At them!" cried he, pointing down to the road to where the yeomen were standing stock still with wonder of what they saw. As the hawks darts down up on the quarter carry, so speed the 4 dogs at the yeoman, but when the 4 men saw the hounds so coming all with one accord, saving only Will Scarlet, drew each man to his goose feathers to his ears and let fly the staff. And now the old ballad telleth of a wondrous thing that happened. Thus it says that each dog so shot at leaping lightly aside, as the arrow passed him whistling, caughting it in his mouth and bit it in twine. Now it would have been all ill day for these 4 good fellows, had not Will Scarlet stepped before the others and met the hounds as they came rushing. "Why, how now, Fags?" cried he sternly. "Now, Beauty, down, Shira! What means this?" At this sound of the voice each dog shrunk back quickly, and then straightway came to him and licked his hands and fawned upon him, as is the wont of dogs that meet one they know. Then the 4 yeomen came forward, the hounds leaping around Will Scarlet joyously. "Why, how now?" cried the stout friar. "What means this? Art thou wizard to turn those wolves into lambs?" "Ha!" cried he, when they had come still nearer. "Can I trust my eyes? What means it that I see young Master William Gamwell in such company? "Nay, Tuck," said the young man, as the four came forward to where Robin was now clambering down from the tree in which he had been roosting, he having seen that all danger was over for the time. "Nay, Tuck, my name is no longer Will Granham, but Will Scarlet, and this is my uncle Robin Hood, with whom I am a-bidding just now." "Truly, good master," said the friar, looking somewhat abashed, and reaching out his great palm to Robin, "I ha often heard thy name both sung and spoken of, but I never thought to meet thee in battle. I case thy forgiveness, and do wonder not that I found so stout a man against me." "Truly, most holy father," said Little John, "I am more thankful thee ere I was in all my life before that our good friend Scarlet knew these 3 dogs. I tell thee seriously that I felt my heart crumble away from me when I saw my staff so missing at its aim, and those great beasts of thine coming straight at me." "Thou mightest indeed be thankful, friend," said the good friar. "But, Master Will, how cometh it that thou dost no abide in Sherwood?" "Why, Tuck, dost not know of my ill happening with my father's steward?" answered Scarlet. "Yea, truly, I know that not, thou wert in hiding because of it. Marry, the times are all awry when a gentleman must lie hidden for such a small thing." "But we are losing time," quoth Robin, "and I have yet to find that same Curtal friar." "Why, uncle, thou hast not far to go," said Will Scarlet, pointing to the friar, "for there he stands beside thee." "How?" quoth Robin. "Art thou the man that I have been at such pains to seek all day, and have got such a ducking for?" "Why, truly," said the friar, demurely, "some to call me the Curtal Friar of Fountain Dale, others again call me in yeast the Abbot of Fountain Abbey, others still again call me simple Friar Tuck." "I like the last name best," quoth Robin, "for it if dope slip more glibly off the tongue. But why didst thou not tell me that thou wert here I thought, instead of standing me searching for black moonbeams?" "Why, truly, thou didst not speak me good. Ask, good master," quoth stout Chuck. "But what didst thou desire of me?" "Nay," quoth Robin, "the day goeth late, and we cannot stand longer here talking here. Come back with us to Sherwood, and I will unfold all these as we travel along." So without tarrying longer, they all departed, with the stout dogs at their heels, and wended their way back to Sherwood again. But it was long night past nightfall ere they reached the greenwood tree. Now listen, for next I will tell how Robin Hood compassionated the happiness of 2 young lovers, abided by the merry Friar Tuck of Fountain Dale.